Monero, Zcash, Dash. The cryptocurrency category that was supposed to deliver on the original cypherpunk promise: transactions that cannot be traced, financial activity that cannot be surveilled, money that belongs to the sender and the recipient and nobody else. For years, the marketing around this category has been straightforward. Use a privacy coin, your transaction is private. The blockchain cannot reveal who paid whom. The chain analysis firms cannot build a graph of your activity. Case closed? Except the case was never closed. It was propped open by a set of assumptions that, in practice, fail often enough that privacy coin users have been identified, de-anonymized, and in some documented criminal cases, convicted on the basis of chain analysis work that was supposedly impossible. The vulnerabilities are not in the cryptography. The cryptography of Monero's ring signatures and Zcash's zero-knowledge proofs is, in the narrow sense for which it was designed, sound. The vulnerabilities are in the metadata surrounding those cryptographic protections, and in the ways that metadata leaks across every layer of the stack outside the protocol itself. I want to walk through what those layers actually are, because the conversation around privacy coins tends to stop at the protocol level. It treats the cryptographic guarantee as the full privacy guarantee. That framing is a mistake, and understanding why illuminates something broader about how privacy systems fail in practice. Start with Monero, which is the privacy coin with the strongest protocol-level privacy. Monero uses three primary mechanisms: stealth addresses, which generate a one-time destination address for each incoming transaction, so the recipient's public address does not appear on the blockchain; ring signatures, which obscure the sender by mixing the real input with decoy inputs, so an observer cannot tell which of the ring members actually signed the transaction; and ring CT, which hides the amount being transferred. Taken together, this is a protocol that does not publish, in plain view, who sent what amount to whom. Now layer in the ways this leaks. Ring signatures work by mixing your real input with decoys selected from prior outputs on the chain. The quality of the privacy depends on the indistinguishability of your real input from the decoys. Early Monero had a ring size of only a few. Over time, the minimum ring size increased, and current Monero uses a ring size of 16. Research, however, has demonstrated that ring signature analysis can probabilistically identify the real spend through statistical attacks on decoy selection algorithms. Work from researchers, including Andrew Miller, Malte Musser, and others, including a well-known paper titled An Empirical Analysis of Traceability in the Monero Blockchain, found that earlier versions of Monero had very high traceability, sometimes above 80% for older transactions, because decoy selection did not mimic real spending behavior closely enough. Subsequent Monero hard forks improved the decoy selection algorithm, reducing the effectiveness of those specific attacks. But the ongoing arms race between decoy selection heuristics and statistical de-anonymization has not been settled. Future research may identify further patterns. Separately, Monero transactions broadcast to the network at the peer-to-peer layer expose metadata that has nothing to do with the cryptographic protocol. When your wallet sends a transaction, it reaches the network through a peer node. That peer node sees your IP address, the wallet node selected, the timing of the broadcast, the pattern of your announcements. If the peer node you connected to is operated by an adversary, or if a passive observer is monitoring the Monero peer network broadly, the IP to transaction linkage becomes available, even though the transaction content is encrypted to the chain. Monero has integrated with Tor and I2P to mitigate this, but users must actively configure their wallets to route peer-to-peer traffic through those overlays. Default configurations typically do not. There was a specific vulnerability disclosed several years ago related to the Dandelion++ implementation in some wallets, where network-level analysis could de-anonymize the originating node under certain conditions. The protocol has been updated. The broader point, that network layer metadata leaks independently of chain layer privacy, remains true for any cryptocurrency. Zcash introduces a different set of issues. Zcash offers two types of addresses: transparent addresses, which look and behave like Bitcoin addresses and offer no privacy, and shielded addresses, which use zero-knowledge proofs, specifically ZK snarks, to hide sender, recipient, and amount. In theory, shielded transactions are among the strongest privacy primitives in production cryptocurrency. In practice, the majority of Zcash transactions historically have been transparent, not shielded. This is not a flaw in the cryptography. It is a behavioral reality. Users do not default to the private mode. Exchanges often require transparent addresses for withdrawals. The shielded pool, at various points in Zcash's history, has held only a small fraction of total supply. When shielded usage is low, the anonymity set is small, and privacy degrades. A classic finding in Zcash research, including work by the Electric Coin Company's own researchers and external academics, is that when a user moves funds from a transparent address into the shielded pool and then out again shortly after, the correlation of amounts and timing can link the deposit and withdrawal, reconstructing the pseudo-private transaction. This was more vulnerable in earlier protocol versions, and has been addressed through changes like the sapling and orchard upgrades. But the underlying issue, that a shielded pool is only as private as its usage volume, remains structural. Dash is often grouped with privacy coins, but its private send feature is fundamentally a coin join mixer, which is categorically weaker than Monero or Zcash's approach. Coin join style mixing is vulnerable to a range of analysis techniques developed originally for Bitcoin mixers and extended to Dash. Chain analysis firms have openly stated that Dash private send does not meaningfully impede their tracing capabilities. It raises the analytical cost modestly. It does not break the trail. Now let's talk about the metadata that sits outside the chain entirely. Every privacy coin transaction begins somewhere and ends somewhere. The somewhere is rarely a wallet that exists in a vacuum. It is a wallet funded from an exchange, or converted from another cryptocurrency, or loaded with fiat through a service that knows your identity. The moment you perform a Know Your Customer exchange transaction to buy Monero, the AUI exchange records your identity, the amount of Monero purchased, and the withdrawal address. Even if the subsequent on-chain activity is cryptographically private, the entry point is not. Exit points are the same. When you convert Monero back into Bitcoin or fiat at an exchange, the exit transaction is identified. If chain analysis can narrow the space of possible paths between entry and exit using timing, amount patterns, and network metadata, the privacy of the intermediate Monero activity degrades substantially. This is the patent security researchers call the ends problem. The middle of the path may be encrypted. The ends are known. Any analyst trying to de-anonymize a user works on the ends first, and lets the middle remain cryptographically opaque, because the ends are usually sufficient. Law enforcement has increasingly demonstrated this capability. Several documented cases have involved Monero. In the 2020 takedown of a specific darknet marketplace, the indictment and subsequent court filings revealed that investigators had traced activity across Monero, Bitcoin, and traditional banking, despite the supposed unlinkability of the Monero leg. The specifics of the techniques used in those cases have not been fully declassified. Analysts, including those at firms specializing in cryptocurrency tracing, have described a toolkit that includes exchange subpoenas, network-level observation, wallet fingerprinting, and statistical analysis of ring signatures. The result is not that Monero is broken in the sense that every transaction is traceable. The result is that Monero is not broken, and users were de-anonymized anyway, because the layers outside Monero were sufficient. Wallet software introduces its own fingerprinting. Different Monero wallet clients produce slightly different transaction structures. Fee algorithms vary. Decoy selection behavior varies. The version of the wallet, the presence of certain defaults, the patterns of consolidation, all of these leave a signature. Chain analysis can often identify which wallet produced a transaction, which narrows the possible user population dramatically. Timing correlation is another layer. If a user has a fixed, predictable schedule, transactions originating during particular hours reveal geographic information. Cross-referencing that with exchange withdrawal timings and social media activity can produce strong probabilistic links to specific individuals. None of this involves breaking the cryptography. It involves looking at everything around the cryptography, The mempool represents another leak. Before a transaction is confirmed on the chain, it exists in the memory pool of network nodes, waiting to be included in a block. Observers monitoring the mempool can see transactions before they are buried, and in some cases can identify the originating node before the dandelion-like privacy features fully obscure the path. Zero-knowledge proof systems themselves have had vulnerabilities disclosed. In 2018, a counterfeit vulnerability was disclosed in Zcash's early ZK snark implementation, which, if exploited, would have allowed undetectable counterfeiting of Zcash tokens. The vulnerability was patched before. As far as anyone has publicly demonstrated, it was exploited. The fact that it existed at all is a reminder that these are complex cryptographic systems, and complex cryptographic systems have bugs. The cryptography is not a promise. It is a current best effort. So what does this mean for someone who wants financial privacy? It means recognizing that privacy coins are a layer in a privacy strategy, not the whole strategy. Using Monero does not, on its own, provide meaningful privacy. If your entry and exit points are surveilled exchanges, if your network traffic is not routed through an anonymizing overlay, if your wallet fingerprint is distinctive, and if your transaction timing correlates with other identifiable behavior. For a user with a genuine privacy threat model, the stack looks more complete. Acquire the coin through peer-to-peer channels or decentralized exchanges that do not perform identity verification. Run your wallet behind Tor or I2P. Use Monero because its default on privacy is stronger than Zcash's optional on shielded pool. If you value simplicity and defaults, wait between receiving and spending to decorrelate timing. Use a wallet client that is actively maintained, like the official Monero GC or CLI, and update it to benefit from the latest privacy-related improvements. More importantly, recognize the limitations. Do not perform large, distinctive transactions that stand out in the anonymity set. Do not move funds immediately through a privacy coin to a known exchange and treat the middle as cleansed, because the timing and amount correlations will often bridge the gap. Do not assume that because the blockchain analysis firm says they cannot trace Monero, they are not building capability to do so. And do not assume that current chain analysis limitations will hold in 5 years. The broader pattern for anyone thinking about this space is that privacy technologies fail at their boundaries. The cryptography holds inside the protocol. The metadata flows at the seams where the protocol meets the rest of the world. The exchanges, the networks, the wallets, the schedules, the human habits. An adversary with sufficient resources will look at the seams first, because the seams are almost always easier. The cypherpunk promise was not wrong exactly. It was incomplete. Mathematical privacy is a tool. It is not a state. And the blockchain, which was supposed to be the ledger of freedom, records not only the transactions cryptographic systems try to hide, but the traces those systems inevitably leak. The next time someone describes a privacy coin as untraceable, without qualification, take that as a signal that they are either selling something, or they have not yet been the subject of a determined investigation. Both are reasons to listen less and think more carefully about what the word private actually means in a system where everything that leaves your machine is, in some form, a clue.